Can't remember where you hid it? Or just thought of where you should have hidden it? Let's find out more.
Come on, boy. Money. It smells like happiness. Left or right? Oh, it's to the left. God, I think he's right. Oh, no. He's found a petrified turd. You're looking at Pet's Wood. This is where many a villain down in Kent has come to hide his money. Thing is, has he ever found it again?
Hello, David McMillan here. Retired smuggler. Troublemaker. Anyway, you know or you don't know who I am. I guess it doesn't really matter. Today after lunch I took my dog, little Nico, to the park. He was sniffing around, and I've always wondered whether I could somehow train him to dig up all the buried loot. It was in Pet's Wood, that's in Kent, and a lot of old villains used to use the place to hide their stash, to bury things, their ill-gotten gain. But the problem is, and I've tried to hide things in parks before, amongst the foliage, you can never find the damn thing again. In fact, I knew that from giving instructions to somebody to find something in Germany. It didn't matter that I'd marked the tree, 2 meters above, or that there was an X spot somewhere. He never found the damn thing. So I thought maybe we could think about hiding things in general, stashes. Now, I used to know a guy that was incredibly obsessive about it. This was Thai Tommy, the Asian smuggler. He couldn't walk down the street looking at anything without imagining it being modified and packed with stuff. Of course, his big thing back in the day, they were cutlery boxes. Yes, flat trays with a decorative lacquer box. There would be about 4, perhaps 5 millimeter layer of dope pressed into it. It worked, but of course, by the mid-80s, its time was well over. There's lots of different kinds of hiding. There's even hiding people, if people are on the run. And hiding as a human being, well, that's a different story altogether. I'll go into that some other time. But I will just say, get an apartment next to the police station in a big city. Forget about going country and staying in some lonely outpost or small B&B or a cabin in the woods. Just about guaranteed to call attention to yourself. But the hiding of yourself or other people, that's for another day. Really, today I wanted to think about what it was about the containers that I used to hide things in. Just for the sake of convenience, we'll say we're hiding the Cocoa Pops from the kids. Yes, the little devils will get straight into those Cocoa Pops. So I used to hide my Cocoa Pops by grinding them up and then packing them tight in the wooden surrounds of stereo equipment. Now, those were the days when there were wooden surrounds to stereo equipment, so it actually worked well. The important thing was how it felt. Because it was packed tight, when you tapped it, it felt solid. And something being solid or feeling hollow is something to very much Years ago, I had a friend, Harry the bank robber. He was tasked one time, I was unavailable, to take some coke and pack it in something so it would get through the mail. Now, he didn't want any advice. He'd obviously thought he was pretty good at it. And when he'd sent it on its way, he gave me a cat-like smirk, saying, "Well, David, I've certainly got this done." Had he? It didn't last even the very first layer of check. Do you know where he put it? Harry stuck it in a porcelain statue. I mean, that idea must go back to, the first porcelain statue that was ever made was probably the next day considered for stashing something in it. But it looks like it's going to be hollow. You just can't do that. Also, look to things that are not normally the size that you would have. Something that's flat. I've used panels that have had things pressed into them and used them with quite some success. But this is that kind of stash where something is packed and it will be destroyed when it gets unpacked. You can do lots of good things and also actually build things into resin. Years ago in Lebanon, they used to take the Bekaa Valley hash and press it into dinner plates and then give it a coating of something that you could break off without wrecking it or contaminating the good fine golden smoke that was inside. But that art of the hiding in a commercial way has been refined very much by the Colombians. They haven't done dinner plates for years, I don't suppose. What they ended up doing, of course, was dissolving the coke in alcohol, and alcohol dissolves it pretty much perfectly. So that liquid, they could turn it into shampoo, or shampoo look-alike, by not using too much alcohol, or they could use a ratio of about 3:1 and end up with a yellow liquid which could be passed off as some kind of inferior white wine. I noticed the other day that was done and caught by labeling that white wine as Madeira, which is kind of a red color, last I recall. A lot of things fall down at the last hurdle with utter stupidity. But let's distinguish here between a personal stash and a commercial one. If you've got some Cocoa Pops around the house that you want to keep away from the kids, where to put them? Well, one of the best places is kind of out of the normal eyesight. That is, consider where people usually look when they come into a house and a room. They look at people mostly, don't they? But when they're alone and hunting around for things, they might not think of a door, which even though it's hollow, they can check the surface. But if you go into that door along the top, cut it out, take some blocks out, you'll be left with the cavity. If it's a fire door, you'll have to drill out some of that pulp. But it's very rare that I've seen police stand up on little chairs or whatever and start digging around in the top of opening doorways. Of course, if they're doing a complete, what do they call it? A fingertip search. That's kind of perverse ring to it, that. But they will probably check that. So you've got to go further. And where to go from there? One of the most effective devices is a way of hiding something which takes into account the searcher. That is, you build something that's a safe place. It might, even if it's just you take the painting off the wall and there's a safe behind that wall. Though you need kind of a thick wall for that sort of thing, not just a partition. Here's the point. When the secret place, when that door's opened, there are shelves in it, probably lined with velvet or felt, and there'll be something of value in there. Build that, but add a second layer behind it. That is, when you take the shelves out, there'll be a spring-loaded catch which releases yet another door behind that initial safe. Once somebody finds something, they feel that it's mission accomplished. They don't often check the very container itself, though it shouldn't be freestanding or they might take the whole thing away. And that can really apply to many other ideas. You can lay out a bit of bait of some kind. I don't know. If there was a drawer with somebody's porno collection in it, would they then expect to take out that drawer and find another trapdoor underneath with all those Cocoa Pops everywhere? Well, hopefully. Let me just quickly dismiss quite a few things. You don't want the heavy base of a lamp. Scratch that one. Not inside the pillows or underneath the sofa. These are very first resort places. This is where anybody looking for whatever you've got will straight away go to. You also don't want inside big pots, anything like that. Here's the two levels of this thing. If it's commercial, you really want to be able to get a customs officer or a police investigator or your smart friend to take the object in which something's hidden and say to him or her, it's in there, find it. And of course they might say, well, I'm going to just take a chainsaw and cut the thing in half. Oh, yes, but that's failure. I mean, even a kind of grizzled investigator won't feel very happy about that. They like to find whatever's been hidden. I'm thinking now, though, of something was built by some people in Lima. My friend gave me the box, which contained some padded purses, kind of native decorated things. I really couldn't find it. My assumption was that it was somehow in the padding. And when I cut it open, I took the padding. I said, look, what do I need to soak this out of it or what? He said, no, it's as it is. Do you know where the stuff was? It had these big press studs on it, maybe an inch, but they looked flat. It was very cunningly built into those press studs. And what threw me was really contemplating the amount of work it would have taken to put them in there. It would have taken, well, a room full of busy bees packing these things, making the tiny little discs, which were just tiny little discs the size of buttons, regular buttons. Then what did they do? Wrap them in cling film and rather pointlessly put aluminium foil around them. I really don't know why people do that. Aluminium foil blocks X-rays. You don't want to use it. It'll only draw attention to whatever's being X-rayed. Also, by the way, carbon paper, another myth, completely pointless. So I was quite pleased that this job was so good that I couldn't find it. But of course I eventually did because I knew it was in there. But not all policemen are always going to know that. Not all kids will be determined that the Cocoa Pops are not on the shelf with the other cereal, but in the shelf itself. No. But they do have a brute force approach that'll probably get through to it. So, when it comes to being prepared to manufacturing something, or to manufacture something, really, if you have the patience, imagine this. You take the Cocoa Pops, grind them up, dissolve them, whatever, make them into a kind of paste, and you fill that tiny hollow tube in a cotton bud. Takes some time, quite a bit of effort. And how much would you get in there? Probably less than 20 milligrams at the most. But you can make thousands of cotton buds and put them in plastic and put them in boxes and put those boxes in crate. And that crate can be sent to 2 places around the world and through Dubai to the Abu Dhabi Free Trade Zone and then onward with false papers. Yes, if you really wanted to do that, you could get those cotton buds through to just about anywhere. So, by the way, that would be wrong and illegal. But anyway, you could damn well do it. That's for sure. But this is a major manufacturing enterprise, and it's going by ship. Forget planes. But we're not really talking about that today. If we're thinking of personal stashes, really, this is it. Whatever it is, with one exception I'll come to, should never look like a container. A container holds something, so it shouldn't be, unless it's an empty container. I noticed something the other day. What was it? One of those cloth woven shopping bags, you know, the kind that are recyclable and don't involve any plastic. Well, it had a rather thick base to it, but was still kind of scrunchy under the hand. It had a double layer there. Now, if you've got something small, you could put it in there and throw it with the other bags. The odds of anybody finding it are pretty remote. and perhaps something like the odds of you ever remembering that that's where you put it the next day when it seemed like a great idea at 3 in the morning, but you just can't for your life remember where it is. And the exception I was going to talk about was a canning machine that I bought years ago. It was a little thing. You could set it up on a tabletop canning machine. So I put my Cocoa Pops in there and remember to distribute them evenly. Make sure the weight was about the weight of whatever the label that I put on. And so I had to add some weight to it. Sealed up the cans. They had little rubber-edged tops, which were perfect. And take those cans and then replace them with labels I just bought from the supermarket. Yep, they went in as, don't make them liquids, soup's no good. Something very boring like pressed meat. Nobody wants to eat that stuff, let alone open the tin. That goes on the shelf with everything else. In fact, I remember back at the time, a notorious dealer used the canning machine I had because he simply couldn't see his customers anymore. What he had to do was make up all these tuna cans, put them on the shelf. He had a little local shop, or he made sure he did, and the customers would come in and buy some small thing and hand over $5,000. And he'd direct them to the tuna section, and they'd pick up the tin with the yellow label. Yeah, and it works out. Of course, if somebody's watching, they would probably miss that. But if it's repeated, the repetition would give it away, wouldn't it? There's another thing to consider. Lookalikes. I recall going into an aquarium. One of the packets of, next to the fish food, I think it was, with these objects that you put in fish tanks, and they had packets of white chunky granules that went into a fish tank to make that bottom layer. Now here's the point. The packet had a photograph of the fish granules and a little transparent window of cellophane so you could see them inside. Now as it happened, I had a load of white chunky small granules that I wanted to take around. In fact, I didn't have to take them around. I packed them in a box and sent them by mail. They were coming, this was only within Europe. You wouldn't want to pull such a crazy stunt straight away. Straight away from Asia or from South America. But for local use, lookalikes are pretty good. If whatever it is you're hiding, say you're hiding something that looks like bars of chocolate, carefully wrap it up in a chocolate bar. It's good for a temporary home. Here's my final bit of advice about the art of hiding things. Don't have it around you. That's the most simple thing. And there's lots of good reasons not to have the Cocoa Pops at home, because you'll spend an hour putting them away, walk around for 10 minutes, and then you straight away found a pretty good reason to have another good old bowl of Cocoa Pops. Yeah. So you'll be doing that all night. It was actually a complete waste of time working out where to hide it, because come morning there was nothing left anyway. No, don't keep it at home. And the best places are places where people move through a fair bit. Don't worry about that. Perhaps commercial premises or some building where they have one of those pillars that has electrical wiring in it going between the floors. They usually have little access ports or trapdoors. You can take your Cocoa Pops in a tight container attached to a string which is then lowered down between the floors so they can't really be seen. Okay, you take the chance that if some rewiring is being done, and very heavy-handed rewiring, it might be knocked out of place or discovered. But then really, if you wanted long-term storage, like a time capsule, you might as well concrete the damn thing in or use resin. I can recommend Taranti's in London. Oh, one of the best resin shops you'll ever find. anything can be made to look like anything. I mean, they have metal powder to mix in with the resins. The thing comes out looking like bronze. I saw a fine hand made that way. I suppose it would work for Cocoa Pops too. But no, keep it away from your house. That's the best thing you can do. And then you get a peaceful night's sleep instead of no damn sleep at all. Bye. If you tell me a little bit about yourself, what you like, what you hate, where you want to be in 20 years, I'll write something for you as an inscription in a signed copy of Unforgiving Destiny and post it out to you. Tell me about yourself. Contact me, davidmcmillan.net, on the contacts page, davidmcmillan.net, and we'll work something out. Night-night.